So what I've been asked to talk to you about today are heritage speakers. Who are they? Right? Linguistic, academic, and affective reasons that make these young people different from our traditional second language learners. And what are some of the best practices in working with them, okay? And why is this important, not just here in California, but all over the US? I think that there are teachers in all corners of the country who need this information. So the canonical definition of the heritage speaker actually came out of California, out of here, from Dr. Guadalupe Valdez. How many of you have heard of Dr. Guadalupe Valdez and her work? Okay. How many of you teach heritage speakers, heritage Spanish speakers? Okay. How many of you think you teach heritage speakers, but you're not sure? Okay, very good. So how many of you think in the future you might need this information to teach some heritage speakers? Okay, good. All right. So what Guadalupe Valdez told us is that the heritage speaker is the individual who's raised here in the US with a language other than English in the home. So of course we have heritage speakers of Hmong, of Vietnamese, of Korean, of French, of you name it, we got it here in the US, okay? Now this definition insists that the heritage speaker have some knowledge of the language. Maybe they only understand it, and that's called a receptive bilingual. Notice, I don't say passive bilingual. That term, there's nothing passive about understanding language, right? But this definition is a little strict in that it insists that the person have some linguistic development in their heads in the language that makes them different from a second language learner. Now, you might be of heritage origin. Okay, let's say your grandparents came from Mexico or whatever, but you have zero, nothing, nada of Spanish going on up here. You fit into a broad definition of a heritage learner. Okay, we don't want to say, well, you're not, but linguistically, right, your brain looks exactly like that of a second language learner. So those aren't the folks I'm talking about today. Does that make sense? The ones who have the heritage motivation without the heritage morphosyntax, phonology, etc., absolutely can and should claim that heritage, is what I'm trying to say, but that's not who I'm going to be focusing on today. So a little bit of numbers here. You probably already know that Latinos form 17% of the US population. It's projected to be 1 out of 4 by 2050. I think it's going to happen a lot sooner. You heard it here first. Actually, I don't need to tell y'all that because we know, and I use the terms Latino and Hispanic interchangeably, the US government and what people tend to seem to prefer, and I hope without, sin ganas de ofender. We know that 1 out of 4 school children are Latino in this country. And then if we look at our schools, there are urban areas, right, where the majority of the schools are majority Latino. Okay, so for example, where I live in Chicago, 1/3 of the schools are majority Latino. 1/3 of the schools have 50 to 100% Latino populations. My kids attend a school that's 85% Latino. 1/3 of New York City schools are like this as well, majority Latino. Half of schools in Miami, y aquí en Los Angeles ni se diga, right? Y'all know this, right? How many of you work in a school that is majority Latino school? Okay, so I'm standing here telling you what you already know, right? A lot of schools down here are majority Latino schools. Now, I'm about to show you a map that never surprises anyone. This map, when you ask the person who doesn't even know or think about Spanish, they're not Spanish teachers, they're not involved in la comunidad latina in any way, and you say, where is Spanish spoken in the US? Where are the Latinos in the US? They'll say, oh, they're in the Southwest, they're in Southern California. They might mention New York. If they're really smart, they'll mention Chicago. A lot of them, maybe the Northwest is surprising to them. Did you know that Woodburn, Oregon is a little teeny tiny town and it's like 65% Oaxacan? Isn't that interesting? I was just there recently and I had the best tlayuda ever. But anyway, this map doesn't surprise anyone. What does surprise people is the map I'm about to show you. And it's the growth in the Latino population between 1990 and 2000. And what do we notice? It's in regions that previously did not have a lot of Latino speakers, okay? And my understanding is that in these regions right here, what you have is a lot of meat processing going on. That's a very dirty, very dangerous job, okay? And also there's a lot of agriculture. So next door to me in Iowa, you've got a lot of people working in los viveros. How do you say viveros? Greenhouses? They're working in greenhouses and in other kinds of agricultural work. So that's 90 to 2000, and here is 2000 to 2010. Again, These are regions where your high school Spanish teachers said, ay, eso de los hablantes de herencia, a mí no me toca. I don't have to think about that because I don't have them. But guess what? There's a high probability no matter where you are, okay? Carolina del Norte had like a 400 and something % growth in their Latino population. Kindergarten classes, 25 mexicanitos. Y ni uno habla nada de inglés, and there's not a single teacher in the district que hable español. Esto les ha llegado un poco de la noche a la mañana, right? So these, I don't care where you are, you're going to need to know, if you're a Spanish teacher, how do you work with heritage speakers? A pesar de que when you went to college and studied to become a Spanish teacher very diligently at the best schools out there with the best intended teachers, right? Very often they never mentioned heritage speaker programs, okay? Raise your hand if in your teacher prep program you never really got a good grip on what heritage speaker teaching is. Those of you who never really got a good sense of it. Okay, raise your hand if you did get some coursework on teaching heritage speakers. Okay, you got to raise your hand to one or the other. So let's try this again. Raise your hand if you never were prepared to teach heritage speakers. You never saw a book, you never saw a course, you never saw anything. Okay, look around. That's like more than half of you. Okay, I also did not get any training, and I studied with the best. I studied with Bill Van Patten at Urbana-Champaign. I learned all the great stuff about second language acquisition, how you should teach communicatively, all that good stuff. And then when I had 3 heritage speakers in my Spanish 2 class, I was like, they speak Spanish better than I do. What am I doing here? Right? And so this is what we're going to talk about here, aquí el día de hoy. And what I hope to convince you, if you're not already, is that heritage speakers and second language, L2 learners, are very different. They're like apples and oranges. Okay? All of our students are fruity, but they're different kinds of fruit, we could say. Okay? And they're different linguistically, affectively, and academically. Now, let's first start with linguistically. I do teach a 16-week course on the linguistic differences between these 2 groups of students, and I'm going to do it in 2 slides, okay? I'm just going to really condense it, and I'm going to say their path of acquisition is different. If you take un hablante de herencia y un second language learner, and you give them some kind of proficiency test. A ver, somebody tell me the name of a proficiency test. A Spanish proficiency test that you know about. El DELE, what's another one? The ACTFL OPI, okay? Let's say you take 2 kids, you test them both on the DELE, and they come out igualitos, okay? One's a heritage speaker, one's an L2 learner. You might say, oh, they have the same Spanish proficiency, but guess what? Indagas un poco más y ves que no es cierto. The way they got to that level of proficiency is very different, y las cosas que pueden y no pueden hacer con el español son muy diferentes. So let's begin to see. Which of the 2 groups, when they're learning Spanish, they learn grammatical terminology? Saben que un pretérito es un pretérito, saben que un subjuntivo es un subjuntivo, etc. Which of the 2 will that be? Now, does this mean that a heritage speaker never knows a grammatical term? No. A heritage speaker might know a grammatical term. But where do you learn grammatical terms? In school. Not at home. No sé ustedes, when I'm lavándoles los dientes a mis hijos, I'm not like, hijo, el participio pasado del verbo ser, it doesn't happen. Okay, which of the 2, the variety of Spanish that they learn is a variety that is prestigious, and it is a variety that is monolingual. And I will come back to what I mean by this in a moment, but which of the 2 groups do you think it is? It's the L2. This does not mean that heritage speakers never have a prestigious or monolingual variety of Spanish. What I do mean by this is that heritage speakers very frequently have a stigmatized variety of Spanish, and they frequently have a bilingual variety of Spanish. And I don't know if some of you can stick around. Who can stick around for the workshops after this? I'll be giving a workshop about this very topic right here. That's a shameless self-promotion. Which of the 2 groups is exposed to literacy in Spanish? This doesn't mean heritage speakers are never exposed to literacy, but I'm going to show you some data in a moment that suggests that it's extremely rare for heritage speakers to be exposed to books in Spanish in this country. Okay, which of the 2 groups, do you know what the critical period is? Raise your hand if you've heard critical period. Okay, so this is debated, that's why I put it in quotes. Actually, there are several critical periods, plural, right? The critical period for acquiring phonology is much younger than the critical period for acquiring morphosyntax. There is no critical period for acquiring vocabulary, right? You can always learn a new word. But if we are to accept the general premise that naturalistic, organic language learning, the best kind, happens by 8, 9, 10-ish, okay, then which of the two groups begins their study of Spanish after the critical period went bye-bye? It is L2, because by definition, when did heritage speakers begin learning Spanish? Al nacer, or maybe before. There are some studies suggesting que nacen los bebés with certain like patrones intonacionales del llanto that is tied to their native language. I am so sorry for the code switching. I don't know quite. They've got some interpreters who are also bilingual, so good luck. Okay. I'm happy to go over this later with y'all and do it monolingually. It's hard to do stuff in one language. Okay. So which of the two groups now is typically more fluid orally? Which of the two tends to have a larger vocabulary, especially for cosas cotidianas? I should have mixed these up better. Which of the two tends to have greater sociolinguistic accuracy? Tends to. So for example, they get tú en usted and things like that. Okay? And which of the two tends to have a more native-like pronunciation? Because of that critical period that we talked about earlier. Now, I promised you that I was going to come back to this point right here. I said to you that L2 learners learn a prestigious and a monolingual variety. What did I mean by this? Well, every single society, every single language on every single planet probably has different ways of speaking. Some ways of speaking are elevated and called prestigious. Other ways of speaking, equally valid, are considered less prestigious ways of speaking, okay? Who determines which one gets elevated, okay? It is the status of the speakers, punto. Very, very, very simple. The status of your variety is no different than the status of you as a person. And your status as a person in our capitalistic society has to do with your socioeconomic class. A lot of times it's urban versus rural, right? Don't we value urban things and think that they're better? Don't we sometimes do that and we say, oh, rural things like ay, este rancho, right? We think it's not as good, okay? And levels of formal education. And don't these three things tend to go hand in hand? Don't they kind of tend to go together, okay? So if we were to go to Mars and find a bunch of Martians all over the planet, and they all speak Martian, we know some varieties of Martian are going to be more prestigious than other varieties of Martian. That's just how it works. So if I'm a linguist and I go, I wonder which variety of Martian has more prestige. You know how I'm going to find that out? I'm not going to use a very linguistic sounding methodology. I'm going to hire a real estate agent. And I'm going to say, take me to the wealthiest, the most expensive houses on Mars. And then I'm going to go there and I'm going to start listening to people. That variety of Martian is what I'm going to hear on the news. That's what I'm going to hear in the schools. That's what I'm going to see in the dictionaries. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's this cycle of linguistic prestige, okay? So not only does your socioeconomic class, your education level, et cetera, contribute to how your language is seen, also whether it is monolingual or bilingual, right? Whether it shows sign of recent language contact. Why do I say recent? Is there any such thing as pure Spanish? The concept of purity really has no place in talking about language. You might say, ay, pues el español de Madrid sí que es puro. I don't know. Isn't it just, Latin with a little bit of Arabic thrown in there, and right? So what people mean, though, this is a real phenomenon, even though linguistically it's questionable. 65% of human beings on this planet are bilingual, right? And they mix languages, kind of like what I was doing earlier, okay? Sin embargo, we human beings, for some reason, value monolingualism more. We think of variety, el español de, let's pick a place, el español de Argentina es mejor porque es puro español. Y el de Lima no, porque está mezclado, está en contacto con el quechua. Do you see what I'm saying? El español de Madrid es mejor que el del País Vasco because it's mono. So we privilege this monolingual thing over bilingual varieties. Why? Because bilingual varieties show signs of contact. But guess what? That's not a bad thing. I just want to plant that seed for you. Anyway, so moving on here, the flip side of the prestigious variety is the stigmatized variety. Okay? And a variety is stigmatized for all the exact same reasons. Flip the coin. If you are working class, if you live in a rural area, if you have a lower formal level of education, the way you speak is going to be considered less good than the variety over here, okay? Now, you may be upper class, urban, and have a high level of formal education, but your Spanish shows signs of contact with English, and then guess what? Boom. You're thrown into the stigmatized pot as well, okay? So this is the point that I wanted to make really clear. One variety of Spanish is no better than any other variety of Spanish intrinsically. And I'm going to keep coming back to this point. Let me give you some examples. So over here on the left, you see the variants that are considered prestigious, okay? And over here in this column, you see the stigmatized variety. Raise your hand if you've seen, heard, or said any of these. Come on, fuistes, comistes, bailastes, the famous aiga, okay? So all of these are considered stigmatized because of those reasons, okay? Then you have things like felonía for felony, I love that. Aplicar para un trabajo en lugar de solicitar un trabajo, that would be stigmatized for that second reason, okay? So these are the kinds of things that our heritage learners will come into the class with, and that our second language learners rarely, if ever, will come in using aiga or no me dijistes, right? Now, that's not the only ways that language can vary. There's a lot of different ways that languages can vary, but we are just going to focus on these here today. Okay, so having talked about the linguistic differences between apples and oranges, right? Second language learners and heritage speakers, there are affective differences. Again, you can do a whole semester studying this. We're going to do it in one slide. Heritage speakers, we know, have a family connection to the language, okay? So esto a la hora de ofrecer correcciones, and you'll see that I put la palabra correcciones entre comillas, porque no se puede corregir lo que no esté incorrecto, okay? But if you're going to offer the heritage speaker another way of saying something, what you're telling that heritage speaker is, oh, the way you speak, and your mama speaks, and your abuelita speaks, and everybody, right? You're making a comment on their entire family. You tell a second language learner, don't say this, say that. They go, okay. Right? It's a very different enterprise going on. Now, also, many heritage speakers have been ridiculed, okay? I don't have to tell you, here in the United States, there's a lot of linguistic bullying that goes on, okay? Raise your hand if you've ever been in public speaking Spanish and you got the stink eye. Or you got, yeah, look around, look how many hands are up, okay? Or you get the, you're in America, speak English, right? I actually maintain a website, que no me da nada de gusto mantener, but I put up there all of the cases that come to the news of people being bullied. I'm sure everybody here in this room knows of a couple, right? You remember the lawyer in Manhattan who started yelling at those women in the cafeteria, threatening to call ICE on them, right? The bus driver, I think she was in Idaho. She took a bottle of water and poured it on the head of a 6th grade kid because he was speaking Spanish on the bus. Okay? Now, everybody's got cell phone these days. This stuff goes to the internets, right? And then it goes to my website. But my point here is that this isn't just a couple crazy white people sprinkled here and there. This happens all over the U.S. It's happening right now somewhere in the U.S. Okay? This is a very negative environment for a Spanish-speaking young person to grow up. Okay? So they receive this hegemonic message that says Spanish no, Spanish bad. And then guess what? In their own families, you know what their own family members tell them? Tu español es terrible. Tu español es pocho. Hablas como gringo. Tu hablas Spanglish. Right? So they get it from the outside, they get it from the inside. Es un milagro que lo hablen aunque sea un poquito. Okay? So I don't want us educators to be part de esa bola, right, que contribuye a su autoestima lingüística por el suelo, because that's what happens. They're very aware of the status of Spanish in the U.S. They're very aware when their own English is stronger than their Spanish. They know it. They know it. Will you occasionally get the kid who says, yo ya lo sé todo y no tengo que poner atención? Yes, that happens. What I see in Chicago, at least, and what people around the country tell me, es que te llegan con la cola entre las patas, maestra, I don't speak Spanish. They're ashamed of their own variety of Spanish. So what I'm submitting to you is we should not be part of that group who kicks them with the red pen when they're down and says, así no se dice, así no se dice, ay, qué feo hablas. I'm going to submit to you other ways that we can and should do that because their linguistic self-esteem is an issue. Mientras que el L2 learner is like, yo hablo español, muy bien. And they're really proud of that stuff. Yo conjugar verbos en el subjuntivo. right? And I don't mean to, sort of be poking fun at them. A lot of them are trying very hard, but they tend to have a lot of pride in what they've been able to accomplish, right? Whereas the heritage speaker, who's been systematically denied the possibility to develop their Spanish throughout their lives, has a linguistic self-esteem issue. So that's where the social justice piece comes in, okay? Finally, we have an academic difference here. A lot of times, our heritage speakers, the vast majority, does anybody know what percent of Latinos here in this country are of Mexican origin? It's about that high. It's about 63. Okay, so we mostly have immigrants from Mexico. Unlike immigrants from some other places, we know the majority of folks who are coming over from Mexico are not coming because they're rich political exiles. They're coming for economic reasons. So we have lower general levels of parental education. We know that when you read to children, they become better readers as adults. This connection has been shown. However, what we see is that Latino children, well, children of color in general, are being read less to. Now, and especially in Spanish, forget about it with the Spanish. Now, when I say this, I am not wagging fingers at Latino parents. It's very difficult to read to your children when you're working 63 hours a day, yeah? When you yourself have low levels of formal education, when books cost money, and when perhaps in your culture, that's just, let's face it, it's kind of a white middle-class thing to do. Every night, sit down and read the book with your kids. Not that there aren't other cultures that do it, but the years and years that I lived in Mexico, teaching at El Tecnológico de Monterrey, which is a fancy pants university, and I made friends with colleagues and students there, they didn't have books in their homes. They weren't reading to their children in their homes. So some of this is just different, okay? We also know that poverty has devastating effects on how kids learn. It's difficult to learn when you're hungry, si te duele la muela, if there's violence in your home. There's a lot of stuff going on. Now, I'm not suggesting that we as high school Spanish teachers need to become social workers. What I am suggesting is that we're not just teaching Spanish, we're teaching kids. And when our kids come to us with this series of issues, I think it's incumbent upon us as adults, as educators, to take on a bit of a social justice compromiso con estos niños, okay? So, let's think about high school dropout rates, and I promise the depressing part will be over soon. What percent of Latinx youth in the US drop out of high school? And what percent in California do you think it is? You have 10 seconds in your group. Talk to your table. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, shout out some numbers. National Latino youth dropout rate, high school. 35%. 35, otro número? 40. I feel like I'm in an auction. Do I hear 45? Okay, what about California? 50% of Latino youth drop out in California? 30? 60? Good gravy. 15? Okay, here's the data. Nationally, 27%. That's 1 out of 3 Latino youth leaving high school. My fine state of Illinois, not doing very much better. And y'all here are doing a little better. 22%, okay? But still, when 1 out of 3 youth of color, when we're combining Latinos and African Americans, are dropping out of high school, I don't accept the word dropout. Does anybody know there's another word that educators now use instead of dropout? Push out. Our youth of color are being pushed out of school. Dropout suggests, ay, pues ya no quiero. Like it's very voluntary. Push out suggests that there are systematic problems happening that are forcing our young people's hands to make these decisions, okay? Now here comes el rayito de sol. Some scholars suggest that Spanish heritage speaker courses that are well executed, that aren't shaming our students for their ways of speaking, can contribute to high school graduation rates. It can serve as a recruitment tool. If universities are smart, they can show up to high school college fairs and high schools and say, hey, you're a native heritage Spanish speaker, we want you. We have a heritage speaker program, come to us. So it can be a recruitment tool. Who are my university people here? Any university okay, so it can be a recruitment tool, it can be a retention tool, and it can be a graduation tool. And what I'm working towards now is getting HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions. How many of you work at an HSI, Hispanic Serving? Okay. My university is also one. I'm trying to form a network of HSIs, Spanish departments. Spanish departments at HSIs. Yeah, that would be awesome, right? I got to come up with a cool acronym, though, something that's easy to say. HSI, Spanish, that doesn't work. I'll come up with something, because I want the Spanish departments at HSIs to be talking to each other. Because if you're at an HSI, by definition, you should have a heritage speaker program on your campus. Anyway, so I think this is a space, when it's well done, where our Latino students can experience success. So, not only are heritage speakers different from second language learners, I always say heritage speakers are the apples, and second language learners are the oranges, okay? And all of us, well, half of us, when I saw your hands earlier, when we went to college to learn how to become Spanish teachers, we were only taught how to teach Spanish to oranges. We were never taught how to teach Spanish to apples, okay? So they're super different academically, linguistically, and affectively. We've just seen some of that, okay? But guess what? There's a lot of different kinds of apples. Think of your favorite kind of apple, and when I count to 3, you're going to shout out the name of your favorite kind of apple. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Honeycrisp. I think I heard all of these when you just spoke. So my point is that heritage speakers are not a homogeneous group, okay? They can be very, very different from each other. Some are born in the US, some are born abroad, okay? Those who are born abroad, you might have come here at 6 months old, you might have come here at 6 years old. Your Spanish is going to be really different if you came at 6 months versus if you came at 10. Okay? You might have studied a little bit in your country of origin. You might be a SIFE. Does anybody know what SIFE stands for? Yeah. What does that stand for? Uninterrupted formal education. A student with interrupted formal education. I once had to give Spanish proficiency tests to a group of 8th graders, and this gal had just arrived from Guatemala, and one of the photos was a stapler. She had no idea what it was. She didn't have a word for it. She had never seen a stapler before. She had never been to school before. Okay? They may have attended a dual immersion school, and if they did, their Spanish will be way more robust than if they did not. What % of our Latino home Spanish-speaking kids attend dual immersion schools in this country? Dual language. I'm talking half the day taught in Spanish. It's like this %. It's very, 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 very small, unfortunately. Okay? Also, they might live with their abuelos in the home, or they might not. This is called abuela factor. Abuela factor is super robust. You got abuela up in the house, you're watching novelas every night, and your Spanish is going to be kicking, okay? Much more than if you don't have abuela in the house, okay? Who's my abuelas in the house? Raise your hand. Abuelas, un aplauso para las abuelas, because they do a lot. And abuelos, abuelitos también, son importantes. Also, your birth order will affect your degree of Spanish. What research shows is that the first and second born tend to have more robust levels of Spanish. Why? Porque los papás recién llegados no hablan inglés. Those kids are raised kind of monolingually in Spanish, que no? Then they go to school, they come home, they speak English to the hermanitos, 3, 4, and 5, okay? And this has been shown all over the US. I had a PhD student who's now a professor at Bakersfield, okay? She replicated the study in Chicago. She found the same thing everybody else found, but she found this other very interesting thing, which was about what parents name their kids. This is onomastics, is a word I learned through Marianne. Onomastics is the study of naming, okay, or names. It's a very rich area of research. Anyway, she found kids 1 and 2 tend to be named like Rosario, Guadalupe, Jesus, these ethnically marked names. Kids 3, 4, and 5, Brittany, Jonathan, Stephen, yeah. So this acculturation goes hand in hand with this linguistic thing. So let me show you a composite of 5 different profiles of kids. You can have a kid like Marta, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you know a kid like Marta. She's born in Mexico, llega a Estados Unidos a los 7 años. Su familia viene de un ranchito rural de Michoacán. Her Spanish does have some of those non-prestige features that we saw earlier, the aiga and the fuistes y todo lo demás. She did attend schooling intermittently allá en Michoacán. She spent 3 years in a educación bilingüe program, which, why did I do this? Con todo respeto a mis colegas in bilingual education, they're the first ones who agree with me. De bilingüe no tiene nada. De bilingüe no tiene nada, porque the goal is to transition those kids to all English programs as quickly as possible, okay? What happens to your Spanish after you exit? Who cares? No one cares. No one looks at it, right? Es como la planta que se deja de regar. Okay. Anyway, esta niña asistió 3 años to bilingual education. She speaks puro español en casa con los papás, but she mixes with her siblings. Raise your hand if you know a kid like Marta, you've seen a kid like Marta. Okay. Vamos a comparar a Marta con Luis. We see a lot of Luis on the east coast of the U.S., que nace en Estados Unidos, but like Puerto Ricans, since they're citizens, they have una migración cíclica, right? Un va y ven. So el niño va para Santurce, está ahí de chiquito 2 años, vuelve. He does not go through bilingual ed, and he code switches. He goes back and forth Spanish and English with his parents. Do you have kids like Luis here? Okay, I'm seeing a few hands. Who's going to have stronger Spanish, Luis or Marta? ¿Por qué? Estuvo hasta los 7 años, monolingüe, en México, right? Salud. This kid didn't have any schooling in Spanish, right? But guess what? They're both apples. They're both heritage speakers. What do you do if you got them both? Now let's say they're both 15 years old. And they're in your high school heritage class. What do? I don't have an answer for that. I'm going to keep going. Roberto nace en Argentina, llegó a los 10 años. Regular schooling, middle class family, and everybody thinks his Spanish is de prestigio, de altísimo. I got any Argentinos here? I always mess with the Argentinos, no? Okay. So, and he speaks a prestige variety of Spanish at home. So, ¿quién va a tener, what do you do if you got Roberto and Luis in the same class? And even Roberto and Marta are going to look differently, okay? Now, we say that he came here at 10. At what point does somebody come, and we don't call them heritage speakers anymore, we call them native speakers? Well, this word native feels like it's easy to define, but it really is not. It's not easy to find what a native speaker is. Some cases are clear. I think probably everybody here would agree, like, I'm a native speaker of English. I don't think there's any doubt of that. But there are other cases. Is the heritage speaker a native Spanish speaker? Does native mean what you acquired first? Does it mean lo que llegó a ser más fuerte después? Are Basques native speakers of Basque? If so, why are heritage speakers not native speakers? You see what I mean? We're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But my point of mentioning this is that usually when somebody comes at 12, 13-ish, that's when we start to not use the term heritage and maybe start using the term native, okay? Not that it really matters, but the point is when you hit 12 or 13, you're considered linguistically mature. You're considered linguistically, what you have acquired, you will not lose later, okay? It's like la adultez lingüística. Now, I got teenagers at home, and I can tell you they're not adults, okay? 13 is not adult. But linguistically, it kind of is. In case you're curious, like, what's the difference between a heritage speaker and a native speaker? For all intents and purposes, if you got a kid who's a senior and just arrived yesterday from Mexico, they're probably more like a native speaker than a heritage speaker. Does that make sense? Okay. Then you got somebody like Carolina, que nace en Estados Unidos. Los abuelitos son de Honduras. Her parents were raised in Chicago. She speaks English, like all the time at home, but she's got abuela factor. Abuelas at home, and they watch novelas every night. Esta niña entiende todo. Las conversaciones con la abuela are like surreal, because la abuela only speaks Spanish, y la niña only speaks English, pero y se entienden. Se entiende. La abuela's like, ella le tiene que dar una cachetada, and the girl is like, yeah, I know, abuela, right? And it's fascinating. Now, Carolina and Roberto, like, nada que ver el uno con el otro, right? But they are heritage speakers. They're all apples. What do you do if you've got them both at 15 years old in your class, okay? Finally, el caso más típico que yo veo en Chicago, y tengo entendido que es el caso más típico de acá de ustedes también, is a kid like José. José o nace en México o llega antes de los 5 añitos, okay? Why do I say 5 añitos? What happens at 5 years old? You go to school. So all this kid's schooling has been here in the U.S. He speaks puro español en casa. And here's what's really interesting. This kid shows up to school monolingüe en español. And by the time he's in 3rd or 4th grade, his English, his academic English, is stronger than his academic Spanish. It's just remarkable how fast this occurs, okay? So our summary thus far is that heritage speakers' linguistic, affective, and educational needs are very different. Do you agree? From those of the L2 learners. However, they can be a very, very heterogeneous group too. So what I'm here to argue for today, well, I'm going to argue about a lot of things, but is that we need to separate the apples and the oranges. So I'm going to ask, how many of you have taught a class just for apples? Spanish for heritage speakers, separate apple class. Okay? How many of you have had apples thrown into your orange class? Oh my God. Look around. Look how many, keep them up. Oh, I want to cry. This is sad. Okay, that is what I'm arguing against here today. Okay? And those are your two programmatic options. You can separate them at the beginning levels. Now, again, to my university people, nobody is suggesting that you have a separate track all the way through the major and that they stay separate the whole time. Nobody's suggesting that. What I'm saying is at the beginning levels of instruction, the buenos dias, mi nombre es Brittany, those levels of instruction, they should be separated, okay? They can come together at the upper levels. 60% of colleges and universities are offering this, but you know what that means? 40% are not. And I'm not talking about all colleges and universities. I'm talking about colleges and universities that have the population to merit a heritage speaker program, okay? Only slightly more than half of them are actually doing this, okay? The other option is to mix your apples and oranges together. And what we saw at the beginning is that this is not pedagogically sound, okay? Now, before I get into why this is not pedagogically sound, let me just mention this. If you got your department chair, your dean, your principal, right, the powers, if you got them to create a separate heritage speaker course, Español para manzanas, right? If you've got that, cuentas con eso, and you're lucky enough to have it, you cannot let the heritage speakers go take Orange Spanish. You just can't, okay? This is very logical. Now, I am all about student agency, students making decisions about their own coursework, particularly at the university level. They're adults, they're paying, right? It's very. However, we are the ones with the degrees in linguistics. We are the ones who know what's best in that particular situation. When a student takes an algebra placement test and is told, go here, they go there. Period. There's no fight. There's no talking to the parents. You go there because that's where you go. Okay? We are the ones best equipped, if we're doing it well, we're the ones who are best equipped to say, you're a heritage speaker. I can see from your profile, you go here. A veces tienen miedo. They're like, oh my God, heritage speaker, ¿qué es eso? You got to be like Cervantes to go in there. And remember, we saw their linguistic self-esteem is very low. They're like, I can't, no. Mi español es malo, I can't go there. And then you get them to say, no, mira, todos son como tú, todos. And I'll take the book off my shelf. I'll be like, mira, go to class tomorrow and tell me what you think. And they're like, I see, usted tenía razón. Everybody here's from Chicago. In fact, I grew up with that kid. So they get it then, and they're like, okay, this is fine. Okay? This is super important. You might hear people say, I know que me están discriminando, no quiero ir allá. Or you might hear, no, the parent says they don't want the kid to go there. Or a counselor in a school will say, no, go to the Güero Spanish. You'll get an easy A. Okay? Now, I'm here to propose to you, again, I insist, we cannot let heritage speakers enroll in classes that were not designed for the same reason that we don't do this in English. Now, let me give you an example. I was raised in New York, okay, monolingual in English, right? I show up to college. Right? Who's from my New Yorkers? Woot, woot. All right, then. What part of New York are you from?
Oh, New Jersey, actually.
Well, okay. It's my job as a New Yorker to say, go back to Jersey. No, just kidding.
New York in the house.
You know, when somebody drives really, really bad in New York, you're supposed to say, go back to Jersey. Now that I'm in Illinois, you're supposed to say, go back to Wisconsin. You know, who do you California people like to do that to? Well, you drive so calmly, you don't care. You're like, Anyway, all right, Jersey, we'll talk later. We'll talk. So when I showed up to my college, right, isn't it true that all colleges and universities in the U.S. require English, right? They call it freshman ret, they call it comp, whatever they call it, es una clase de inglés que aunque hayas nacido y criado aquí en Estados Unidos, you take it, okay? Now, a lot more colleges and universities now offer that required freshman English class. They'll have a section designed specifically for folks who have English as a second language, right? For folks who still need a little extra support. Let's call that the ESL section, okay? What would happen if I showed up to my college, freshman, right, here I am, I gotta take my English class, ooh, let me take that ESL section. What would my academic advisor tell me? No, mija, that's not for you. You can't take that, right? What if I said, no, pero it fits my schedule better? That's exactly what they would do. They would laugh at me. What if I said, no, sabes que, I don't feel like my English is strong enough. I should go to the ESL. What if I said, no, miss, you're discriminating against me. I want to take this, why, how could you tell me where I need to go? I get to choose what class I take. They would still look at me like, no, that class is not designed for you. It was designed by people with doctorates in linguistics who kind of know what they're doing, who have your best interest at heart, who have the other students' best interests at heart, and who have the professor's pedagogical interests at heart and the university mission at heart. Lo siento, mija, go to the class que te corresponde. That's what would happen, right? So my argument is that this is exactly the same reason why we do not let heritage speakers take SSL, Spanish as a second language, classes. Now, I'm not saying porque se apellide Jimenez or porque he looks, that's not why. It's because we've done a rigorous and thorough evaluation of her Spanish, and we have determined that she is a good fit for the heritage program. Does this make sense? So this is my argument, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, and luckily I have a dean who supports me and who said, you know what? If a student on your placement test, which you have put through psychometric rigor, and you've proven, it does a good job separating heritage speakers from second language learners, not on ethnic criteria. This is not ethnic profiling. This is linguistic profiling. Yes. And guess what? Linguistic profiling is completely legit. We do it in math profiling, when we give them a math placement test, right? Chemistry, physics. My husband had to take all those placement tests, right? This is a linguistic profile. Now, it does so happen that the folks who place into heritage tend to be Latinos, but guess what? They're not always. Let me give you 3 examples. I once had a güerita whose parents had hired a nanny for her. She was a heritage speaker without the heritage. Ella hablaba un español, she had the aiga and the fuistes and all that stuff, right? Another was a Mormon, he was a LDS, a return mission. He had done a mission in Argentina. And he was like 6'12", redheaded kid, and un mar de mexicanos in my Spanish class, because he was a heritage speaker without the heritage. And my final example is my own kids, right? Yo soy güera, mi marido es güero, I got 2 güeritos, and I talk to them in Spanish. They are heritage. My older son placed into heritage speakers too in his high school. Yeah, he's this white kid sitting there with all the Mexicanos, but he's like, órale. Because he spent every summer in Mexico. So, so this is not about ethnicity, it's about language when we're doing this. So if you can get your dean or your department head to back you up on this, you should have the right to take these folks out of the orange Spanish, okay, and put them where they belong. And this is just better for everybody. Now, some people say, no tenemos los números. There's not enough of them. And I say, I'll tell you what, look at your Spanish. So this is your basic Spanish program for güeritos, okay? And here is your sections that your dean has budgeted for you. Over here, you've got 2 heritage speakers hidden in there. Aquí no tienes ninguno, aquí tienes 2, aquí tienes uno, aquí. You've got enough to make 1 section, right? Oftentimes, that is the case, okay? So this is something I want you to think about. Now, if you cannot force them there, if you don't have a stick, what are some of the carrots you can use? Now, here I'm talking to my university people. I'll leave it up to the high school people. Maybe you can suggest to me ways that we can convince these young people and their parents that they have to go to the heritage program. What we do at my university is if you place in heritage and you get a B or higher, you get free retroactive credits for the prior course level. So that's 4 credits that you just got gratis. That's a nice carrot. Also, you can offer fewer face-to-face contact hours. If your regular L2, orange class meets, 4 hours a week, you can have the heritage one meet 3 hours a week, okay? Because the work that's done there is a lot more intensive, okay? Also, or you can have an extra online work if you like, some kind of carrot to entice them, right, if you can't force them there. Also, you can have them fulfill the language requirement more quickly, right? These are ways that you can be creative and get the heritage speakers where they belong. But here's the reality. We have these mixed, raise your hand again if you taught the mixed heritage with L2. Oh, good Lord, okay. And you survived. I'm here to, there are some Kleenex under the table. We're gonna have a big therapeutic session here. We can all imagine that our L2 students feel very intimidated. Yeah? Because you got Jose in there, talking about, no, pues lo que pasa es de que yo fui, la, la, la. And they're like, oh my God, what is he doing here? He just wants an easy A. This isn't fair. Okay? But guess what? The heritage speakers are super intimidated by los güeritos who know what a pasado perfecto del subjuntivo is, and they can fill in the blank with the pretérito, and they know where the palitos go on the words, right? That easy A that they thought might materialize, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, okay? And so they get their test back, and they're like, órale, el güero got an A, and I got a D. My Spanish is worse than I thought. Right? These güeros, they learn the proper way. Right? They think their own way is terrible. Then, of course, there's the teacher who goes crazy. That's actually a picture of me when I taught a heritage speaker class, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a quick list of don'ts. A quick list of don'ts, what you should not do if you've got some heritage speakers in your orange L2 class. And then I'm going to spend what little time I have left unpacking some of what we could be doing, what I think are good ideas for us to do. Here's what not to do. Do not assume that they want to be the poster child. Okay, some of them love to talk about, en mi casa se hace así, en mi abuela dice esto. Others of them would tell me in interviews, like, ay no, y siempre me preguntaba, like, ¿y tú, en tu casa? ¿Tu abuela también mata gallinas? Like, and they're like, oh God, leave me alone. Do not treat them as unpaid tutors. I've had teachers tell me, ay no, por favor, no me quites a mis hablantes de herencia, me encanta tenerlos ahí en Spanish 1 y Spanish 2. Son los únicos que me entienden, se ríen con mis chistes. Y me ayudan a enseñar a los güeritos. And I'm like, you know what? That's not why they're in high school. That's not why they're paying tuition to be unpaid labor. No. If you can organize the help to go 2 ways, now we're talking. But otherwise, that's exploitation. And that ain't right. Do not assume they're going to know grammatical terminology. Just because they use the subjuntivo doesn't mean they can fill in the blank with a subjuntivo, tell you what a subjuntivo is, tell you why you use a subjuntivo. Now, here's where you and I might part company. My opinion is it doesn't matter if they know what, okay, all right, I got somebody agrees with me. If you're going to become a Spanish teacher and you're in college majoring in Spanish, become a Spanish teacher, lo siento, mijo, te tienes que aprender todo eso. But if I have you for a little bit of time, a semester, just a year, I don't care if you can identify a pretérito if it bites you on the butt, as long as you're using it. I don't care if you know what an objeto directo is. I don't. And I don't spend time on that in my courses. Now, that's where I say we can agree to disagree on what our goals for Apple Spanish classes are. Mine does not include that kind of knowledge. Consider assigning a brief reading at the beginning, again, if you're forced to have apples and oranges together. A brief reading en inglés, que todo el grupo lea cortito, short and sweet, que explique, hey, we're all different in here. Some of us are apples, some of us are oranges. We have different needs, para que los güeritos no anden pensando que, oh, this guy wants an easy A. Que va a ser difícil para ese niño. You know what nobody says to native English speakers in their English classes? Oh, you want an easy A, right? Who of you were raised in the United States, raised in the US, okay? And you took English in high school? Did you assume you'd get an easy A in your English class in high school because you already spoke English? No. So why do we assume that the heritage speakers think this, right? So let's get this out in the open, right? Have the students do a reading and discuss. right? Yeah, no, I speak it at home, but I have my insecurities about the language, and have the L2 learners say, yeah, I know how to conjugate verbs, but when I speak, I don't know how to use them, and have them help. Does that make sense? I think that really can go a long way in helping your apple-orange mixed class. Of course, the better thing to do is don't have one. Separate your apples and oranges. We already saw the apples are so diverse. At least get apples in the room, and then you go, oh God, look at all the apples. They're so different, all these apples. But at least you don't got the oranges there too. How on earth? I mean, that's just way too much to deal with. Now, I told you what not to do. I'm going to spend a few minutes sharing some ideas of what you could do. And here is where I defer to Maria Carreira's work. We're going to talk about her in a second. She came across this idea that's been around for a long time in elementary education. It's called differentiated instruction. And I'm going to sum this up in 4 words. You ready? More work for you. More work for you as a teacher. Yeah? I mean, I know that we don't assume when we teach Orange Spanish, L2 Spanish, we walk in with our Spanish as a second language book. And on Wednesday, we're on page 72, right? We don't assume that all of the kids are exactly with us. We assume a certain amount of heterogeneity, don't we, among our students? We know some are faster, some take a little longer. We know this, okay? With our heritage speakers, those differences can be even bigger. And if you've got apples and oranges together, wow. So this field of instruction helps us think about ways to move away from one size fits all, okay? One size doesn't fit all. One size le queda grande a algunos y le queda chico a otros. One size does not fit all, okay? It's kind of like, I'm sure you've seen this before. For a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And look at the chango there. He's like, órale. Watch me go. And the fish and the elephant are like, ¿qué? What? ¿Cómo crees? Okay? Now, some teachers may think, oh yeah, I differentiate instruction. I make my heritage speakers answer 10 questions about the reading, and my L2 learners answer 5 questions about the reading. That is not differentiating instruction. That's doing a little tuck and gather, or maybe letting out a seam de esa ropa que no le queda bien. That's like telling the elephant, okay, here you go, here's a ladder. Suerte. That ain't right. Truly differentiated instruction means going out there and finding el número exacto que le quede a cada alumno. More work for you. Okay? So instead of everybody climb the tree, you're saying, okay, you are good at herding sheep, so you're going to go from herding 1 sheep to herding 20 sheep. Okay? And this is where my metaphor breaks down. I think I'm going to leave my metaphor. So we have Claire Chick and Maria Carreira, who've written they've written a lot of work, but together they collaborated on a piece that I'm happy to share with you about differentiating instruction. They talk about differentiating the content, the product, the process, and the pacing. And you can take a 16-week course just on how to differentiate instruction. I'm here today with my time to just get this out there to you, and I'm happy to share more resources with you. Now, I'm going to conclude thinking about what are your goals. You got all your apples, okay? Let's say you've got your heritage speaker course. What are your goals? Well, the first thing you have to do is figure out what your kids can already do, okay? And you're going to come up with a list. There's going to be a list of things they can do well and a list of things they can't do well yet, right? This is going to sound really like, duh, seriously, we know that, but you'd be surprised. The things they can do well, don't teach. Don't have it in your curriculum. Do your students have any problems saying la casa, las casas? They don't have any problems with that? Great. Don't teach, ¿cómo se llaman? Artículos definidos. Do they have any problems saying envié la carta, la envié? Do they have problems with that? Using la there? No? Then don't teach direct object placement. You'd be surprised how many people, they just se aferran a los libros L2. Los libros L2 enseñan objetos directos. And then they teach. I once watched a 45-minute class where this teacher did artículos definidos. I know. And I asked her afterwards, I'm like, so, do your students have trouble with... She's like, yes, sometimes, colibri is hard. So because colibrí is like, oh, is it el or la? That's why you spent 45 minutes doing artículos definidos? Like, no. La gente se está aferrando a las metas L2. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it, figure out what they can do and say, okay, eso no lo enseño. The majority, okay? Your apples are going to be a little bit different, and you have to pitch to a middle. There's going to be a long list of things they can't do yet. From here, you choose your goals, okay? So this is why I will get emails from people around the country that say, ay, ¿qué libro usas? I want to use your book. Hey, I'll give you my book. But are you sure that our students look the same? If you think our students have this same list of what they can and cannot do, and furthermore, you agree with me on what you should, because you can't do all this, can you? You don't have time to do all of these things. You have to pick what you think is important from this list. So I have chosen what I think is important from this list. So if you have the same students I do, similar profile, similar apples, furthermore, you agree with me on what they need to develop, then by all means, here's my exam, here's my book, here's my placement test, take it, use it. Pero muchas veces, cuando indagas un poco más, you realize, no, your students are boricuas from, New York City, or they're Cubanos down in Miami. Like, they've got a different profile. They're not gonna, does that make sense? Okay. Now, as I said earlier, we might agree to disagree on what to take from that list, but at least you've done your work. So once you know what it looks like, what do you want them to develop? Beware, please, of clinging too strongly to L2 goals and L2 pedagogy. What I'm going to ask you to think about is, instead of L2, I want you to think about language arts. What does language arts mean? Again, can I get the people who were raised here in the US, okay, and you took an English class? What did you study in your English class, Jersey, when you were in high school?
Literature, Greek literature, short story.
Writing, short story, yeah? Poetry. ¿Qué más? Music, formal expression. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we should be doing. Now, I'm not saying we go to Mexico and we take their, libros de, ¿cómo los llaman allá? Lengua materna. Right? Don't go over to Mexico, take the book of lengua materna for 10th graders and boom, import it here. You can't do that. Right? No va a quedar bien. But what I am saying is draw from that more than from yo voy, tú vas, ella va. L2 Spanish, okay? You do need some linguistic support. Now, if you've got a kid like Carolina, you remember Carolina, the one who had the abuela in the house and she watched the novelas, her Spanish is not very strong? Your heritage Spanish class might end up looking like half L2, I'm going to call it L2-ish, L2-like, in that it has like supports for her. But half is going to have a more of a language arts approach. If you got a kid like Jose, remember that kid? He had the very strong Spanish. I think most of your kids are like Jose. Then probably what you're going to be looking at is a course that's 3/4 language arts like, right? But with these additional supports, because Jose was not raised in Mexico. He can't use native language arts, lengua materna materials. He needs some kind of support there. The good news is that a lot of these materials are out there. A lot of these books have already been written, okay? But we need more. We need more materials. And I'm not even suggesting that you need a textbook. But I am saying that there's stuff out there that you can start with, okay? Now, here's a really good question. Remember I said earlier, I don't teach them el subjuntivo, el pretérito, el esto, el otro, la terminología gramatical. Is there value to teaching this to heritage speakers? Some people say yes. Correa did a study, and guess what? Their confidence increased after they studied las etiquetas, right? It did not change their production one bit. And why should it? They already have a linguistic system. But what it did do was increase their confidence. Oh, sí, el pretérito se usa blah, 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 y el pretérito blah, blah, blah. Okay? However, having them conjugate verbs, waste of time. Produce definite and indefinite articles, waste of time. My opinion, identify preterite and imperfect out of context, waste of time. It's probably, okay, I said it a little nicely, more nicely here, it's probably not the best use of instructional time. I think we can rethink our goals, okay? Sometimes explicit grammar explanations that are designed for oranges actually confuse the heritage learners, right? You might have the best explanation ever. Okay, niños, para formar el subjuntivo, tomas el infinitivo, right? Quitas la terminación, y pones la vocal opuesta. Your heritage learners be like, wait, what? ¿Qué es un infinitivo? ¿Qué es la terminación? ¿Y qué rayos viene siendo una vocal opuesta? ¿A poco hay vocales opuestas? What is this, right? And so I discovered one day, oh, okay, I got to go through the side door. So what I do is this. A ver, niños, put ojalá in front of the verb. Si te suena bien, es el subjuntivo. Y si no, no. Let's practice. A ver, vaya, vaya. No dice te digo, ojalá vaya. Sí, maestra, suena bien. And I'm like, es el subjuntivo. And then they write it down. Okay. Comieron. Ojalá comieron. No, fuchi, no. No suena bien. Ajá, porque no es el subjuntivo. And with a bunch of practice, then they feel like, okay, esto es subjuntivo y esto no. Once they can do that, then if you want, you can talk about, okay, ¿cuándo se usa el subjuntivo y cuándo no? Let them figure it out. Right? Estas explicaciones that work for our L2 kids, just, they don't work for these kids, okay? It can actually be confusing. And then check this study out. My buddy Andrew Lynch did a study about acentuación, and he took two groups. One group that had no instruction on acentos and one group of heritage speakers that did. And the ones that did acabaron peores que los que no. ¿Por qué? Porque empezaron a poner palos everywhere. Everywhere. Now, I'm not saying that los hablantes de herencia are less intelligent, they're incapable of learning this. Of course, they're capable of learning it. But I have yet to see a really strong lesson plan that helps them do this well. Maybe one of y'all have found the answer. But when I tell them, I'm like, all right, listen, manzana. Do you say manzana? No. Do you say manzana? No. How do you say it? Manzana, maestra. Sí, pues ahí está el... And then they go, ay, pero cuando usted lo dice, lo oigo, pero cuando yo intento hacerlo, no puedo. Right? So I have yet to find la clave la mágica que abre, right, para los acentos. Some of them get it, some of them don't. I'm just throwing this out there for your consideration, que machacarles durante semanas y semanas y semanas con eso. Is it a good use of time? And I'm going to ask you one more question, and I swear I'm going to move on. When you write something of importance, algo importante que va a leer tu jefe, que va a leer no sé qué, something important, do you write it by hand? When was the last time you wrote something by hand que fuera muy importante? Like formal and important and had consequences, and you wrote it by hand. When? In el siglo pasado, maybe? What am I trying to say? We all use what? And what does a computer have? And a spell checker catches how many of your errors in Spanish? Most. There you go, Tom. You got about 85%. It will not catch if you write mi mamá habló and you write habló. Y no le pusiste el acento ahí. Ahí sí no te lo va a cachar. So my argument is, teach that. Teach las cosas. Teach donde y donde. Teach te y te. Right? Teach hablará and hablara. Enseñen solamente lo que la máquina no pesque. Don't teach B alta, B chica, SSZ. Don't do that. The máquina is going to let the máquina do it. Because again, we rely on it. ¿Cómo le vamos a negar a los muchachos una herramienta de la cual dependemos nosotros? Okay, so I got to finish here. We're almost done. I want to conclude thinking about what we mean when we say standard Spanish, okay? We think we know what that means, but los lingüistas dicen, no existe. No existe una variedad estándar. Lo que sí, el español tiene una ortografía estandarizada, doesn't it? Que yo sepa, lápiz se escribe igual in every single part of the Spanish-speaking world. Spanish has standardized orthography and English does not. Do I got any British people here? Any Canadian people here? Because y'all spell stuff funny, right? You put U's in it and you put S's where we put Z's. Spanish does have standardized spelling. Nothing else, right? Grammar is different, okay? Morphosyntax is different. Words are different. Do you have a story? Raise your hand if you have a story about a word que para ti es muy inocente y normal, pero para otra persona, like te quieren dar una cachetada because it's offensivo. Raise your hand, raise your hand. Look around, everybody. The most famous one, of course. There, thank you. Thank you for saying it. Los españoles, cogen esto, cogen lo otro, cogen de todo. Andan cogiendo todo en la vida. Y para el mexicano, it's like, ¡ah! ¿Cómo crees? Right? So we know that Spanish varies all over. There's no such thing as el español estándar. No existe. Sorry about that feedback. I think I'm getting excited. Es un poco como la boda y la playa, ¿sí? Y esta es una analogía que le robé a la profesora Ana Celia Centella hace años. And then one day I told her, I'm like, profesora, ¿sabe qué? I stole your metaphor of the beach and the wedding. And she's like, es boricua. Y me dice, no te preocupes, mi hija, yo se lo robé a otra persona. Así que tú úsalo todo lo que tú quieras, tercera mano. So, la metáfora dice así. When we go to a beach, right? What kind of clothing do we wear? Y no es playa nudista, mal pensados. ¿Qué ropa nos ponemos? Traje de baño, nos ponemos chanclas, una playera, right? Un poco así como el señor Timberlake, okay? Si esa noche le toca al señor Timberlake acudir a esa boda, that seems to be in a fancy, right? It's like un templo, una iglesia, right? ¿Qué se va a poner? Pero ya lleva traje. Oh, es traje de baño. ¿Qué traje se tiene que poner? Traje formal. Con corbata. ¿Las chanclas? Se va a poner zapatos de vestir. All right. So, ¿qué pasaría si al señor Timberlake se le ocurriera acudir a este lugar vestido así? ¿Qué diría la gente? Bueno, aparte de... Y yo ahí con mi selfie, I'd be like, oh, come on. Right? ¿Qué diría la gente? No le van a dejar entrar, ¿por qué? Fuera de lugar. ¿Ah? Hombre, ¿qué diría la madre de la novia? ¡Oh! Pero este tipo, ¿qué le pasa? What's wrong with him? Qué descarado. Está vestido de manera totalmente... Okay, every time I point to you, you're going to say that word, okay? Inapropiado, ¿sí? Okay, ahora, ¿qué pasaría si algún día decide ir a la playa, un día normal, que no es boda of Brad Pitt or anything, and he goes to the beach dressed like that? ¿Qué diría la gente? Qué ridículo se está trazando el tipo. Está loco. Está vestido de manera totalmente inapropiada. Now, here's the crux. Can we say that his bathing suit is incorrecto? Does that word make sense? Puede ser una prenda de ropa intrínsecamente, inherentemente incorrecta. Solo puede ser. Does that make sense? I've seen a lot of ugly ties in my life. They could be ugly, pero no pueden ser incorrectas. Solo. Does this make sense? Do you see where I'm going with this? Ninguna forma de lengua de una comunidad se puede llamar incorrecta, sino para cierto contexto. And you have figured out that I'm not talking about bodas y playas here. I'm talking about actos comunicativos. Nuestros alumnos nos llegan, ya es hora, ¿verdad? Nuestros alumnos nos llegan con un español de la playa. Okay? Now, we as educators could say, cuando Juanito nos llega al salón con su traje de baño, oh, ¿cómo te atreves? Quítate eso, quémalo. I never want to see that again in my life. Fuchi. We could humiliate him like that. He's been humiliated his whole life. Why not? Or we could say, mira, por lo menos no viene encueradito. Viene con algo. Viene con algo. A ver, Juanito, ven conmigo, vámonos para Macy's. Ven. Y lo llevamos a Macy's y le medimos una camisa and we put on the shoes. Now, how long is it going to take Juanito to learn a vestirse apropiadamente? 16 weeks? How long did it take you to develop your beautiful formal Spanish? 16 weeks? No. Juanito se va a equivocar, va a poner la corbata en la cabeza, no va a meter la camisa, se va a equivocar de pie, right? But poco a poco he will learn que ciertas maneras de expresarse, si bien no son incorrectas, if there's one thing you get out of this talk, it's to not use that word anymore. If a community says it, it cannot be incorrect. It's impossible, okay? What we want to do is expand their wardrobe, look inside their closets. Juanito en su armario de español tiene pura ropa de playa. Su closet de inglés tiene ropa de playa y ropa de boda. ¿Por qué? Now this part no se lo robé a la profesora Centella. This part I came up with by myself. The reason is that he's been raised in the United States. Every time he's had to go to a boda, and again, what am I talking about when I say bodas? Formal experiences. Every time he's had to do anything formal, write an essay, talk to the landlord, talk to the lady in the bank, it's been in what language? Right? He's never had to do this in Spanish. Él sabe que no puede escribir ain't en su essay. He does not know that he can't write aiga or fuistes. He does not know that. Why should he know that? ¿Quién se lo habría dicho? Una maestra. Bueno, su maestra was not a Spanish teacher. Does this make sense? And I actually show this to my students, la boda y la playa. In fact, I like to show them this. You've heard of Tupac, right? Well, this is usted Pac. Right? We want our students to do both. So no le digamos, ay, nunca digas aiga, no existe. First of all, aiga existe. Aiga es incorrecto. Aiga no es incorrecto. Es estigmatizado. No es incorrecto. No puedes tildar de incorrecto. If you call it incorrecto, estás mostrando ignorancia. Ignorancia lingüística. Okay? If we want our students to do this, we got to teach them. And we have to add to it. We don't want them to take off their aiga and their fuistes, their traje de baño, porque lo van a necesitar cada que van a la playa. They need this. They need this. We're adding that. Adding. Y no a través de las humillaciones tampoco. Yo quiero que ustedes piensen como geólogos. Y con esto concluyo. Cuando un geólogo llega al campo y ve una piedra que nunca había visto antes, ¿qué dice el geólogo? Dice, ¡oh, esa piedra es incorrecta! No, ¿qué dice el geólogo? Órale, una piedra nueva. ¿Cómo llegó a formarse? ¿Cuáles fueron las condiciones? I don't know, what do geologists ask themselves? Presión, right? Tiempo, presión, tiempo. ¿Ah? Erosión, las químicas, las compuestas. I don't know what they ask themselves, pero se preguntan cosas muy interesantes. They never say que sea incorrecto. Okay, that's how I want us to think. I want you to question this concept of incorrect. No existe. Okay? Y es una cuestión de respeto. Respetar lo que llevan puesto. And our students see this in U.S. Spanish all over the place. Now, I think one of the hardest jobs we have is decidir qué es lo que está bien en la boda. Who decides that? Is it la RAE, la Real Academia? I don't know, and if you come to my workshop later, we're going to talk more about this. I think these decisions are locally grounded, okay? And I conclude with one more metaphor que tampoco le robé a nadie. When I was raised in New York, and hey, Jersey, you got this too, right? What do you call this box that we get in that brings us up and down? Yeah. What do you call this thing where you put in your car stuff? The trunk. Okay, so me and Jersey, we grew up with these words, okay? You know what Jersey and I were never told our whole lives, I'm willing to bet? I was never told my whole life. You know what, Kim? You should really say lift and boot. Pa' que te entiendan en Inglaterra. You know what? Yo no estoy en Inglaterra. Yo estoy aquí. Si me voy a Inglaterra algún día, maybe a lo mejor empiezo a decir lift y boot. Pero yo no tengo por qué cambiar mi manera de hablar mientras yo esté aquí. Es válido pedirles a los hablantes de herencia aquí en Estados Unidos que abandonen sus maneras de hablar para que se les comprenda mejor en Xlandia. No, pero, no. Si hablan así y llegan a España, nadie les va a entender. Okay, let's unpack that. First of all, how many of them will go to Spain? I don't know. But that's a great goal. Let's say some of them do go to Spain. Is it really that incomprehensible? How much is understandable? 90-something%. Okay, y esa palabra, si yo llego a Inglaterra y digo trunk, ¿se va a morir alguien? No. Or they're going to say, esta persona habla de otra manera. Okay, vamos a llegar a negociar what we're trying to talk about. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen si nuestros muchachos llegan a España. They will adjust their ways of speaking para que se llegue a dar la comprensión. Okay? So this is a question of respecting. Y la RAE también lo ha reconocido, ¿eh? Did you know this? En el 2012 aprobaron la palabra estadounidismo. Yes. So this is a thing. This really exists. Y hay que reconocer que el bilingüe no es dos monolingües unidos por el cuello. No. That's not how it works. 60% of people on this planet are bilingual. These processes absolutely deserve respect. I won't, have time to talk about the rest of that. And I think my thing just crashed on me. That's weird. Let me try one more time. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it seems to have crashed out on me. Anyway, my final point was that, yeah, I don't know what it's doing there. Microsoft Fund. Okay, so I will disconnect it, and I will conclude by saying que es una cuestión de ser lingüísticamente knowledgeable and realize that our heritage speakers have their ways of speaking. Yes, se tienen que pulir. Claro, se tienen que agregar cosas para que lleguen a ser usted pack, right? Pero no a través de las humillaciones y no a través de decirles que your Spanish is incorrect. It's not. It's not incorrect. It's stigmatized, unfortunately. So I think our job as educators is to add on to their Spanish. Does that make sense? Okay. I think aquí concluyo. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Kim, for the wonderful talk. I want to apologize for the noise that you are hearing. There is a cleaning company outside. It's called El Diablo. And I went outside and I was like, ¿qué diablos? ¿No?
And
El ruido que están
servicio.
haciendo. The noise that you are making is really bothering us, but they can stop. They have a huge machine and they are already working, so I apologize for that. So now we are in the segment of Q&A. We do have 2 microphones. If you feel comfortable, a lot of us teachers, we have a very loud voice, but just in case, let's put it in the microphone because we are recording this event. We will be able to give you all this information from the event that also includes the PowerPoints. I see some people taking pictures of the PowerPoints, but you can have that information. We will give you the link of that later on for you to listen. And then also Alfredo is going to email all the registered participants a book that Kim Potowski was very nicely gave to us with her code. So you can have that access also, okay? So questions?
Yeah.
We're going to start with the ASL teachers. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I did want to say I am very inspired to be here today. Even though American Sign Language does not have any roots with Spanish, Kim, many things that you said today were applicable and are in line with what it is we do as ASL teachers. I'm actually feeling very emotional. Where is Kim? There you are. You're right in front of me. Sorry, I'm looking all around the room.
I know, I move a lot, sorry.
And your outfit just blended in beautifully with the background and the carpet, I guess. I'm not too sure. But now that I found you, I want to say thank you. And I am a committee member who is with the AAPL, which is the Actful Assessment of Performance Target Proficiencies of Language Committee. That is a test that is used to screen students. And I am on this committee, and ASL has been added, and it has its own test, which will be coming out in 2020. So we are very excited to be a part of this new test. And as a committee member, I have always posed the question, what is the difference between a heritage learner and an L2 learner? And that's something that we are really working on as a committee because it's new for us as well. In fact, obviously we have heritage learners of ASL, and the ETS, as well as the other individuals on those committees who are not American Sign Language users, we constantly have to say to them, hey, let's take a careful look. Who is this test designed for? These questions are not necessarily appropriate. So coming today, Kim, has been very helpful to me as a committee member. And I really don't have a question. I just wanted to share with you how I'm feeling and where I'm at and how you've inspired me today. I'm certain that you work with others on different committees who develop tests for heritage learners or L2 learners, and these are definitely 2 separate groups, and we cannot mix those oranges and apples, especially if we're screening them or testing them. They need different instruments. We have another call.
Right. Can I follow up on that one before we start?
Yes.
Because if I don't, I'll forget what I have to say. Thank you for those comments. Yes, I actually, oh my God, I was recently invited to serve on the AP Language Committee, which is a huge honor, so I'll be helping to think about, how many of you serve as graders on the AP Language? Okay, so I've been invited to that before, but I guess now they have a redesigning committee, so I'm very excited and I hope I make it. So yes, I see the importance of being on these tests. I was at American University in Washington, D.C. about 5 or 6 years ago. They had a heritage language, community heritage language schools conference. And right in front, just like here, there was a big table of 20 ASL folks, and they all applauded like this, so that's how I learned that that's how you applaud in ASL. And somebody there who you may know, I think she's kind of famous, her name is Kat Brockaway, and she came up to me afterwards. We're now, yeah, you know her? We're now Facebook friends. Yeah, no. Kat knows everybody in the deaf community, is my understanding. She's writing books about deaf culture, ASL culture. She wrote to me and said, well, no, at the conference, actually, she said, ASL is a heritage language. Like, she sees a lot of strong parallels, and maybe that's, debatable or discussable, but she sees a lot of really strong parallels between what I was advocating for here and what the ASL community, some of the issues y'all are working on. I don't know enough to even come close to your thoughts about exams that privilege second language learning ASL folks over perhaps native ASL or heritage ASL users. Maybe in your definitions, like the CODA, I've learned the term CODA, child of deaf adults, maybe CODAs are, yeah, maybe they are heritage learners and deaf people are true, are just somehow different, and then people who learn it in college are somehow still different. These are terms that your community will want to define.
Yes, most definitely, and that's what I wanted to comment on, if you don't mind. I have 4 children personally, and all of them are CODAs, or children of deaf adults, and in terms of grammatical rules, we haven't taught those to them in our household, obviously. They have not
Right.
had issues with English. One of my middle son, wants to become an interpreter and has asked me so many questions about grammar and language. I'm like, okay, here comes the formal instruction in my family that I've never done before. In fact, I've been texting my son today because you have opened so many of my mind's eyes to all of these different ideas and the applicability to our field as well. And
Great.
I'm very glad to be here, and thank you.
Great. Yeah, we all know that being bilingual doesn't necessarily make you a good interpreter, right? Nor does it make you be a good teacher. If you become a Spanish teacher, you need to know que el pretérito, que el imperfecto, right? The grammatical terminology that heritage speakers use all the time but just don't know. And who was I speaking with? Somebody earlier said, I learned my English grammar when I took a Spanish class. That's so common for so many of us, right? That we only learn the grammar of our own language when we're forced to via another means. So yeah, I think it's probably common. Just because you have 2 hands doesn't mean you're a concert pianist. You've got to study to do it. Just because you've got 2 languages doesn't mean you'll be a good interpreter or a good teacher of either of those languages. You've got to study to do it well.
Both of my parents are deaf, and I'm a deaf person, so my first language is American Sign Language. That's what we used in our home, and I learned English through learning American Sign Language, in fact. I teach sign language now as my career, and my English continually improves as I teach ASL because of this language comparison.
Got it. Yeah, I really look forward to more and more things coming out of the ASL community. And Kat at one point said she'd invite me to your, what's the name of, you have probably many, but one annual conference that y'all have.
ASLTA, American Sign Language Teachers Association.
No, it wasn't that one. It was
Or
a
is it
different one.
related to deaf education? The California Education.
I'll remember. It's a national something, deaf something, and I'm like, invite me, I want to go. So I'm going to keep nagging her until she does, because I want to learn more.
Where is the conference?
It moves. Viaja. So anyway, I hope to see y'all there. I want to be a part. I don't know, because she didn't invite me. I'm gonna Facebook her right after this. Get on that. Porque como, as Jersey has learned, a donde me inviten, boy.
That's right.
I'm showing up.
That's right. We have a question actually in the back first, and then here.
Hola, hola
Hola.
Kim. Más que preguntas, yo tenía dos comentarios. Sobre todo,
I'm
look at-
sorry. I'm sorry. Can you say it in English? If
Okay,
you can,
yeah.
only because our
Oh, yeah,
interpreters-
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
so I have two comments more than questions. The first of all related to the fact that if you have, we have a heritage speaker program at UCSB. So if you have a heritage speaker program, students, heritage speakers should be in that track, right?
Agreed.
And we make all of the efforts to send them to those courses. But I just wanted to mention regarding the discrimination issue, in the 12 years that I've worked at UCSB, we had 2 cases in which the students actually filed a formal complaint because they said we were discriminating against them. And it took a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of reports that we had to write, a lot of interviews with the claims office at UCSB. So at some point, you just have to be like, okay, you know, it's your choice. If you don't wanna develop this potential that you have to become, you know, a better speaker of Spanish, well, a better, okay.
I know
Yes,
what you mean.
you know, if you don't want to develop your Spanish proficiency all the way, then it is your choice. Because it was very, very hard for me and the TAs that were involved in those cases. It is a pity, but it is what it is. And also, I want to talk about the book factor, just like you talked about the abuela factor. Some of the students, I noticed that as soon as they buy the book, they are not going to leave the course. I already bought the book for this course. That's it.
Yeah.
Because I bought the book, I'm not leaving the course. And that is a very common factor that they always mention, that because they don't want to change tracks. And that's one comment I wanted to make.
Oh, that was one? Okay. Can I say something real quick to
Yes,
that? Because
yeah.
I was already like, my brain's getting full.
Okay.
I know that I stand up here and talk about like, oh, you can't let them in, blah, blah, blah. And I realize that different campuses have different situations. And having gone through not one but 2 lawsuits, I'm sure makes you super, I get it. You know, and I don't mean to sound cavalier when I say, you know, the things I say. That being said, I want us as a field, and this isn't going to help your immediate or anybody's immediate situation. I can understand just being like, okay, forget it. You know what? Go where you want. Like, I get it. So it's a lot of work. As a field, I want us to think about putting things in place. I don't think anybody who's told to go to this algebra class argues that they're being discriminated against, right? What they're doing is conflating language and ethnicity, which I get it. It on the surface makes sense to do that. But we've got cases of people where they're not, there's nothing ethnic going on, but they are. They do fit the profile, right? And if you can prove that your heritage speaker placement exam is not, where's your mama from? Where's your daddy from? What do you speak at home? It's asking vocabulary questions. It's assessing your linguistic knowledge. You could be from Mars. If you got the heritage speaker profile, you're ending up in the heritage speaker program, period. Could we then get rid of that issue? And it's another issue entirely. I would love to be able to interview those students. Why are they? Because again, I'm about student agency and understanding, you know, we're in this together, et cetera, but you can't bully your way through stuff, right? If that's what's happening. Yeah, I don't want to accuse them of being bullies. I want to understand that more. Mm-hmm. I want to understand what they're feeling, what makes them want to do that. How can we respond as a field and make this best for everybody? And the book factor, you've got to allow, we've got to be more flexible with that. Publishers charge way too much for books. You may know that the author gets 10%. 10%. Wow. Oh yeah, mm-hmm. So that book that cost your student $200, you know, the author gets, what's 10% of that? $20, yeah. What the publisher did for that $180 is a good, I guess they printed it, they shipped it, they developed the content, they developed the online platform, et cetera. But now that everything's electronic, I don't know. I don't know about the publishing industry in general, how it will fare. But we've got to be a lot more flexible with letting them return the book. You know, the publishers are like, as soon as you open it and you get the code, blah, blah, blah. So that's an issue. I'm giving you all the credit. I'm saying yes, I'm acknowledging that that's absolutely an issue. Mm-hmm. We need to not have that. That can't get in the way of somebody's educational experience because they bought a $200 product. Mm-hmm. We've got to solve that, so I acknowledge that.
Well, and our books are not that expensive either, but yeah, as soon as they buy them, they don't want to change classes. And also about those cases where I was sued for discrimination, in the end, those claims were dismissed because they couldn't. I mean, we are qualified, like you said, qualified linguists. We know what is best for the student. We know where the student belongs in terms of coursework. So they were dismissed, but it was already too late. It was like 9 months later when the issue resolved, right? So the student had already taken and finished the L2 course, right?
So could there be some way to publicize, and you're not the only campus, could we gather up these experiences that have happened? And I get it, this isn't a pleasant thing to do, but gather them, analyze them, and then put them out there somehow in some fashion that's sort of a cautionary tale so that other departments and other students in the future can see, okay, people have tried to sue campuses over this argument, and here's how it didn't work, and here's why, and so maybe don't do that.
Maybe this HSI initiative that you are trying to create with all the Spanish or languages departments, right, can be a platform also for that.
Thank you. I need Rafaela on my side. Yes, you just bought yourself a one-way ticket onto the committee, Rafaela. Sorry. That's what happens a la gente competente. They get sucked into every committee.
So in terms of time, I just wanted to keep moving. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I agree with what you said, everything about the apples and oranges. And in my class, I have a class full of apples. And what strategies do you propose when you have one that can write a word and one that can write paragraphs or read one word and read? What would you suggest?
¿Prender una vela? Light a candle? No. El libro que mencionó Rafaela, there's a green book. I refer to my books by color. There's the green one, the red one, the blue. So the green book is called, and my PowerPoint petered out before I had a chance to show it. It's a green book, and it's called Heritage Language Teaching. Very exciting title. Very descriptive. And I'm going to be giving a copy, electronic copy, to everybody here today. I feel like Oprah. Everybody gets a copy of the book. Woo! And under your seat, there's some car keys. No, just kidding. So everybody will be getting a copy of that book. I'm not going to say it has a bunch of magic bullets for you about what, there are no magic bullets, but I hope that if you read it, you might find some ideas about what to do, and it's going to refer you to the work of Maria Carrera and Claire Chick about differentiating instruction. The short answer is, it's not easy. More work for you to differentiate the instruction, but it can be done, and for goodness sake, I'm glad you've got your apples separate from you, so you're not trying to also provide a sound educational experience for your oranges, and that you can just look to your apples. And I'm confident that with work, with consulting with colleagues, with reading Maria's work and maybe the Green Book, you can come up with solid ways that nurture everybody's growth. Yeah, Tom.
Why do you think more L2 learners don't make that fuistes mistake? Because I mean, if you think about it, you think like, okay, this is the only tense that doesn't have an S.
It's the only one.
Why is it that it seems to be only L1 problem?
Right. Well, and I know you didn't mean to use the word mistake, because we know it's not a mistake. It's a natural, it's a regularization. Yeah. I'm actually going to talk about it in the workshop if y'all want to come to the workshop. We're going to talk about that issue. Why they don't, I don't know. Because that's not the input that they're given. They regularize a lot of other things. They say yo sabo, right? Which we know little Spanish-speaking kids do too. Yes. So you know the joke, right? The little kid goes, maestra, bla, bla, yo no sabo. Y la maestra dice, yo no sé. Y el niño dice, ¿usted tampoco sabe? Right? So yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. Sorry.
Okay. I have a question here. I teach 2 AP Spanish classes in a community where is 86% Vietnamese.
Wow.
And the rest are Hispanics, a little bit of African Americans, and other ethnicities. Now my question is this: in my class, I have rounded probably 25 students. Out of those 25, 20 are Vietnamese, and the rest are heritage speakers. Would you recommend that, or do you think they should be separated? By the way, the Vietnamese group, they only have 3 years of Spanish.
I wish they had Vietnamese as a heritage language. Some places do. That's what I wish. Not that, studying Spanish is wonderful. They can become trilingual, et cetera. This is not your question, but my understanding is that A lot of communities in the US undergo a 3-generation language shift. So viene la señora who speaks Spanish, her children are bilingual, her nietos many times have lost Spanish and cannot talk to abuela, which, how many of you were close to your grandparents, like close to your grandparents? Can you imagine not being able to speak to them at all? I think that's tragic. What I've heard is something that's perhaps even more tragic, which is Vietnamese parents who are working 4,000 hours a day, who aren't home speaking Vietnamese to their children, who are in schools not getting any Vietnamese instruction, most of them, and are not learning Vietnamese. As a parent myself, I can't imagine. Can you imagine not being able to talk to your own children? So what I would want for those Vietnamese kids would be to be taking Vietnamese, but that's not what you asked me. You asked me about your 5 Spanish heritage kids, what should be done with them? If in your school you can round up enough, like what's your minimum number to make a class make? Is it 10? Is it 12? 20. Can you round up 20, even if they're apples that are like this? If you can round up 20, and I realize this creates a scheduling problem, right? And the students get mad and their counselors get mad because, hey, if I put them in Spanish 1, they can take it first period, second period, third period, fourth period. If you're making one section of heritage Spanish, it's only 5th period, and that messes up their schedule. I get it. But that's what I would suggest. If you ask me, like, what would you do, and I got to prioritize what I want to prioritize, I would say take all your heritage speakers that you can, make one section just for them. Let the Vietnamitas do their L2 thing, and then you got your manzanas aquí doing their heritage thing.
I want to add real quick something. It's a lot easier now to advocate for them in our public schools due to the fact that in the California dashboard, the seals of biliteracy are now counted. And so it's going to be a part of the grade that the school district gets. So if you could go to and talk to whomever it is, the powers, right, and say, hey, you want more seals of biliteracy because it helps you, then let's create this course. And then eventually it's going to get bigger and bigger because our population keeps growing, et cetera, et cetera. That's just one thing. Mm-hmm. Question?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Potowski, for the talk. It's a great pleasure to be here. Me and my friend Natalia, we come from Long Beach State University. We're students, we're credential students. We're trying to become Spanish teachers. Mm-hmm. And it is so important to be here for us because we are required to do observation hours as part of the courses. And in many of those classrooms that we're visiting, we encounter classrooms full of heritage speakers. And as you mentioned, the programs, even though they are preparing us to use those great strategies to teach L2 students, they are not preparing us yet to teach heritage learners. So for us, it's important to come to these talks and workshops to learn and be prepared for what's ahead of us. But my question, I guess, is that do you think that we as students can do more to ask the programs to create courses?
Yes.
To prepare us for that?
Agitate, please agitate. And I'm so glad you asked this question because now I'm remembering one of my slides that I didn't get to show you said, here are some more resources. So coming here was, a very nice first step. Really all I did though was show you here's a little window of all the stuff that, we should be unpacking more. So this is just a first step. This was just come and take the blue pill and go down or is it the red one, whichever it is. Take this one and wake up and see what's out there. And then, so I've got a website. So if you just go to potowski.org, and if my husband earned his dinner and it's up and running, then you will see I put up there all kinds of PD opportunities. There's a thing online. It's called Star Talk. If you Google Star Talk Spanish Heritage, you're getting the PowerPoint anyway, so don't freak out trying to write stuff down. You're going to get this PowerPoint, and it's on there. That is free. You just have to sign up for an account. It's these modules. There's 8 modules in English, and then there's a Vietnamese module. There's a Spanish module. That's the best thing since sliced bread. That's for somebody who can't travel anywhere, get any PD. It is really nice and well done by the National Heritage Language Resource Center, which you have down the road here. You have them down the road here. You can go to the NHLRC and get workshops. believe it or not, Wisconsin, my neighbors in Wisconsin have come up with an amazing 100% online Heritage Speaker PD program. And that's going to be on my PowerPoint, so you can download it from them. It's fantastic. They have all kinds of components. I believe they're going to that thing in Minnesota to promote it. They have another component where you go down to Oaxaca and spend some time down there. Not everybody can go places, so you can just stay in your house and do the online stuff. So yeah, there's all kinds of additional ways. You know what I want, though? Yes, I want you to agitate for your teacher prep program to have a course on teaching heritage learners. Guess what? This is another shameless self-promotion. Cindy Ducar, Sarah Beaudry, and I co-wrote this book, the green book that I'm giving you guys. The book is out there. Like, that's usually half the battle. Oh my God, I have to teach a new class. They want me to teach a class on how to teach heritage learners. Yes, and here's a book you can use. Oh, thank God. That helps a course come into existence when there's already, I'm not saying the book's perfect. I mean, more books should be written. You can add a lot to it, et cetera, but it's there. So yes, I want you to agitate to have your university teach this course for teachers. But you know what else I want? I want that to be taught online, nationally, with university credit, so that no matter where you are, no matter what corner of the country you're in, you can pay your little tuition dollars, whatever it is, so that it'll count for you for university credit, right? And it'll be a bona fide, certified, like your university will accept it as a methods course. Oh, and then you want to know what I really want? Mi sueño guajiro sería que cada estado tuviera un endorsement in heritage language teaching. Yeah. Can I get a hey? Like that would be, and that's what I'm working on in Illinois right now. The Illinois State Board of Education, they see oh God, here comes Potowski again. She's gonna talk to us about this. Now I've got them where they understand. I'm not talking about bilingual. I talk about Spanish heritage, and their eyes used to glaze over, like in the 90s. They'd be like, that's bilingual, that's K through 8, go talk to fulano. And I'm like, no, I want to talk to you, high school person. It's a high school endorsement that I'm looking for. So if we had a high school endorsement, what would happen? Then the principals would then say, pues you don't have any training in teaching heritage learners, sorry. I can't put you in the classroom. I got to get Mengana, who does have those studies, and then boom. Then what do the universities do?
Creating courses.
They go, caray, we got to offer this methods class because our teachers aren't getting jobs. Yeah. So that's the way to make that happen.
All right, we have one more question, and then I have a couple of announcements, and then moving on.
Thank you. Now, first of all, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. So I have a lot of questions. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you all of them because we don't have the time, but at least a couple of them. So, and they come from my position as an administrator at the university. I'm the chair of the Modern Languages Department at Cal State University in Oak Ridge. So the first question is about the involvement. What do you think it should be the involvement or the cooperation between different departments? And now I'm talking here especially about from the Ethnic Studies Department. Because it seems to me, in my experience, not that sometimes from the Languages Department, when we propose these kind of programs, they are perceived as an invasion of their field, but at the same time, it seems to me that they are not so interested in the linguistic aspect of the ethnic studies. And I'm telling you that because I know, because I have a colleague who teaches these kind of classes in the Chicano Studies program, and her complaint is that she doesn't have the support. Yeah. So they are not so interested in the linguistic part.
My thoughts on that are, of course, limited to my experience. But I mean, I have been around, más sabe el diablo por viejo que por diablo, so I've been around a little while. And here's what I've seen. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Spanish departments have been jerks.
I agree.
We have been prescriptivist, neo-colonial jerks a lot of times, okay? And by that I mean we have told U.S. Latinos that their ways of speaking are bad. All that stuff we were talking about earlier, okay? So until we prove ourselves to the Latino Studies Department as allies, I think que están en todo su derecho a decir, really, get lost. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but at the same time...
No, but let me finish, because I don't mean to leave it there. What I mean to say is, I appreciate your comment. I think it's a very real comment. My thought would be for you to reach out to them, right? Show them, like maybe have a statement that says, we are committed to X and Y, right? Respecting students' varieties, a short and sweet mission statement. Work it out with, hey, look, I've written this mission statement. Can you help me? I want us to collaborate. If you keep reaching out and showing them, what you're about and that your mission's aligned. Hey, I've read your mission statement. Can you read mine? Can we work together? If after a certain amount of work of earning trust and trying to extend that bridge, if they continually say, no nos interesa, then you're like, what? I tried, you know what I'm saying? But I would say that those efforts, I agree with you 100%. They're very, very necessary.
Yeah, and the second question is totally different. I mean, we're in the 21st century. I realize as chair of the department that when we offer classes fully online, I mean, they are very attractive for the students, extremely attractive.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that, about teaching Spanish for heritage speakers or heritage learners fully online?
Right. I've never been a big fan, and it's not because, you know, I grew up before there was internet, which is true. My undergrads are like, what? How did you do college work without Google and Wikipedia? And that's not the reason why. I don't think second language study at the beginning levels lends itself very well to online work. It doesn't mean it can't be done very well, probably, but I have not really seen it. Heritage language courses for people that are very strong in the heritage language, I think, have a better chance at success, especially if your heritage language course is about writing. If you have an oral expression component, that's a little harder to do. It's possible, okay? So I guess what I'm saying, I'm hemming and hawing, and I'm saying, yes, I think a heritage language course can be well done online. It's not something I would want to do because I love being with my students, and I think there is a strong identity piece que no se da igual online. No se da igual online. Unless you're a super tech guy and you can have and have everybody sort of beaming in and seeing each other, like maybe that. I think there's real value in looking a person in the eye and interacting and exchanging stuff. Like if you've got an identity sort of component in your heritage language course, if you're just all about vamos a pulir la lengua and learn how to write formally and do this kind of stuff and talk about these issues, then probably it lends itself a little bit better to online. But no, I'm not like opposed to it. I think if it's done well, why not? And I know that administration is constantly pushing for online, and students like it.
Awesome, thank you so much. I wanted to just kind of tag along something that you had mentioned before as to kind of what can we do, especially in the K-12 arena, to be able to provide a kind of like an assessment to make sure that our students are properly placed. So if they're heritage, here they go. If they're not, here they go. One component that I have been able to place into my district's assessment plan is actually pretty interesting. They have to write a blurb about, for example, have they ever heard of this expression? Sana, sana, colita de rana. Keep going.
Si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana.
If they know that, what do you think?
Yeah.
So they have to write, in what context was this used, and who used to tell it to you? Mm-hmm. That's number one. The other expression was, dime con quién andas.
Y te diré quién eres.
All of our parents said that to us. All of our parents, if we were heritage speakers. So those two are so key to understanding whether or not a student is a heritage speaker or not. So that's just kind of like my little tidbit onto like what I do with my district, and the kids love it. They're just like, oh my God, I do know this, and they feel so prideful, etc. So that was my little spiel. I wanted to say we have 5 minutes of break. We are way over
I'm so
our time.
sorry.
No, but I think the questions and your responses were much more important. People that had to go to the restroom, they already did. But we're gonna have a 5-minute break. And then we're going to start with the workshop.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you, guys. A round of applause.
Oh, thank you.